Everybody, Norm over here, and I have my buddy and one of the great guitar players of LA, Blues Saraceno.
Hello.
And this guy comes from a lineage of family members in the music business,
It's
right?
true. My dad, remember we used to come in, and I think, how long have we known each other? Over 20
You
right?
were a kid. I didn't have any gray hair. You have gray hair now in your beard. Isn't that a shame? He was a young gun, and I was a young, well, no, he was. I was still old at that point. But this guy can play his butt off. And you do so many like TV and movie things and all that. What are you working on now? He's one of the busiest guys in LA.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy part is obviously a lot of people are probably familiar with all the guitar stuff from back in the day, because that was kind of, it was just of the moment. It was very in style, and I did a bunch of records and they did well. And I got to tour, and I was really grateful. I got a lot of great opportunities to play with a lot of really great bands. And from there, it kind of morphed into studio work. I kind of started working with all the producers out of LA, because that's just where all the work was. And then from there, I kind of morphed that into all the television and film stuff that I currently do, because in all honesty, it's kind of one of the last... it's the last bastions of actually making real money, you know what I mean, in the music industry, because the whole music industry just went through such a... it's just in kind
Can't protect your, the stuff, what do you call it again? Your own property.
Well, you can't. That's the problem. Like,
intellectual property. Sorry. That's what happens when you get old. Sorry. You'll get there someday.
Thank you. I'm thinking.
You'll be stumbling and mumbling and drooling.
Yeah,
me.
I'm looking forward to it. But
there you go.
No, but even like it's just like I get to request all the time. Hey, how come you haven't done guitar records? And the reality is, to spend 3 months to really work on something to make it of caliber, to really put your stamp on it, and then just put it out and have it downloaded for free, it doesn't really make sense. So I slowly kind of started working into the television and film thing. And so as of late, what I've been doing for probably the last, I want to say, I don't know, maybe 15 years, I've been working with, I work with this company that's Extreme Music. And in essence, what it is you kind of create these projects that are kind of theme-based. Like, for example, if, like, let's say the Foo Fighters are hot and they've got a record out and it's doing great, or like the Black Keys or something like that, the people like to license that stuff. But obviously, to license a Black Keys track is going to be steep. So they'll come to me and say, "Hey, listen, we love this vein of music, we love this style. Can you do something that's with the spirit of it, but it has to be its own thing?" And so there's a lot of guys that do it like cheap knockoff stuff, and you want to stay away from that. You want to kind of make it as genuine to that style as possible, and then you put it in, and it goes in this catalog. And then in theory, actually in actuality, what happens is that it ends up getting licensed worldwide. So the crazy part is you'll have a certain track and it will get used in multiple places multiple times. For example, I've got one track they used for like the theme for like The Men Who Built America, which was like a mini series. The same one gets used for Carl's Jr. They licensed the track, and so and it's crazy. You get like there's some tracks that really run. Like I've got one track called Dogs of War. It's got like over 19 million views on YouTube. It's people that just takes other ones 4 or 5 million. There's a bunch of them. They just kind of find their own way and they do their thing. So in short, that's what I've been doing for probably, I don't know, like I said, over 17 years now. It's been really good.
I have a buddy of mine, Bruce Miller, who's done a lot of shows, Becker, Fraser, all that kind of stuff. And he's got it down to such a science that, like when he needs like a 9.5 second spot or an 11.5 second spot, after doing shows for, if the show stays on for 8 or 9 years or something like that, he's got so many spots that he can actually do a show in like 45 minutes, because he just goes, well, I've got 11.5 second spots to choose from. He goes, that one, nah, this is the one I'll use. It's like he can just nail a show down in like no time the longer they last.
I mean, it's interesting because there's so many people now doing it, and there's so many different people doing it, and everybody kind of has their specialty. Like for me, people are going to come to me for obviously the hard rock, the dark country, all the really aggressive kind of, and that's kind of, for me, I actually love the challenge of really getting a chance to kind of put my stamp on something and really push it, and it's funny now because even though the stuff I'm doing is technically more behind the scenes, I'm actually in more places than I've ever been. It's interesting. When I was doing the guitar thing, I was very visible on the guitar front line.
In a slot.
Right. And it was, people were like, whoa, but it was a very small market. Now it's a worldwide market. And it's like you're sitting in a movie theater and your stuff comes on, you're like, all right, we're good, and you'll be sitting at home watching whatever. I'm watching, Dancing with the Stars, and I'm like, ooh, nice, okay, that's gonna pay for some kids' soccer lessons right there.
There you go. He's got a family and he likes living in LA. And you do a lot of acoustic as well as electric stuff too, depending what the mood is.
Yeah, pretty much you in essence have to be. You have to apply all the things. You have to be a producer. You have to be a songwriter. You have to be you're playing bass. You're playing drums. You're playing whatever's needed to get the job done. You have to become that person in order to facilitate what you need. Sometimes you're singing on things. Sometimes you're hiring singers. You're just kind of ebbing and flowing with whatever will give you the best result ultimately. So,
well, take my word for it. The guy's one of the great guitar players, but don't take my word for it.
Yeah.
Let's listen to what he can do with the Telecaster and make it sound like a Tele. Picking some chicken on this Tele right here. Blues Saraceno, killing it.
All right, awesome. Well, listen, I can say,
You could do a Colonel Sanders commercial with that right there.
Yeah, we could. That'd be a good one. It's but yeah, I can. Like I said, we should make our first impressions a thing. Like you just come in, you hand somebody a guitar, and it becomes like first impressions. So
well, I kind of know what he likes, so
Yeah.
I try to hand him some stuff that I know is going to kind of, work with him. And he's got a big guitar collection of some really cool stuff.
Yeah,
And he knows the good from the bad, and he uses it as a tool. So it's really cool. You don't buy them to just stick them up on the wall.
No, I'm definitely not a. And the funny part, which is interesting, because which is kind of the reason why I even come here. It's like you have to realize a lot of the vintage, it's a thing, and so I've been doing it. I think I started playing when I was 9, and then we just ultimately had vintage because that's just what was available. Strats were basically about $500 to $600 at the time, and then Les Pauls were always more. It was always like
Shit, how old are you?
I'm 47, sadly. But
there you go.
Yeah,
it comes out now.
Yeah, but we used to burn through a bunch. We just and so the crazy part is I just grew up with it, and that becomes standard fare. And then as I got older, you'd start seeing them less and less. Like Blackguard Tellys, we used to. They just, you could get them for like $500. They were kind of around, and then they just became less and less, and then it became real rare. Then it was really hard to find them, and then then the second the internet came, that kind of leveled the playing field, because then you couldn't find anything at that point. It was like there was no point going on the search.
There's a guy named Jim Weeder who ended up playing with the band. He's a great guitar player, and he's a good buddy, and he comes in to kind of rub it in my nose all the time. Many years ago, in the early 70s, I sold him a beautiful Blackguard Tele for $350. And, whenever he's in town, he comes walking through the door with a, thermometer case and goes, "Remember this?" I go, "Yeah, I remember it." It's like, you want to make me feel stupid and old? Thank you. But, if you're around, these things have skyrocketed. And when you think about art and stamps and baseball cards and stuff like that, I still think collectible guitars are still affordable in comparison. And they do something where a baseball card or a stamp does nothing other than you stare at it. If you bend the corner, make it
you're
fun.
out. I mean, that's, that, well, for me, once again, because they're tools of my trade, for me, it's just, the sad part is, it's a two-handed sword, because in essence, at one point, they're vintage and they're cool. And then at other points, they're just utility for me. So one's a spoon, one's a fork, so the great thing about having, our relationship, and we've known each other for so long, like even, Mark will call me, "Hey, I've got this Strat." I'm like, "Is it this? Is it that?" He's like, "Well, it sits here, it sits there." And I'm out or I'm in. And so it takes a while to do it. And the funny part, I think the last two guitars I bought were directly from you. I bought that old Strat and I bought that old Tele.
Yep.
And it makes a difference, because I got to be honest, I've been doing it for so long and dealt with so many people. There can be a lot of drama associated with, and so for me, in coming here, knowing that it's going to be drama-free, that it's going to be an easy, solid, clean deal, the prices are going to be right, it just takes that stress out of it for me.
I didn't mean this to be a commercial. I know you guys are going, "Norm, you asshole, you got blues here."
I'm just telling you what it is. I mean, I'm not, it's
I
just
appreciate
that's
that.
just the reality of it. So I've always appreciated that. I think in being able to walk in here and do that, it's been helpful because honestly, the drama kind of took me out for a minute with a lot of other stuff.
Wow.
It just, got tired of taking what I called the vintage slap.
Well, okay. Well, I just want to say, if you buy from Norm's, there's no vintage slap.
Yeah,
I'm
there you
gonna
go.
But whatever. He's got a lot of forks, spoons, knives,
Yep.
and all kinds of utensils.
Yeah.
And this guy makes a hell of a use out of all of them. So, Blues, can you do me a favor? Just play us out a little bit here. You know,
Sure.
This is the guy right here, Blues Saraceno. Thank you for coming in, my
Very
brother.
welcome. Pleasure.
Always pleasure to see you. Thank you for doing this.
Of course.
And thank you for helping out with the All Guitar Network.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you
Good
guys
man.
for having me. I always appreciate it. So thanks.